My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and today I am joined by the lovely Sharnie Everton. So she is a psychosomatic therapist, and she has been working as a counsellor for almost 3 years, but started in mental health a long time ago in various roles. Sharnie's work in mental health began in suicide prevention following the death of her father from suicide over 9 years ago. Following that, she transitioned into roles involving inpatient support and community mental health as a mental health worker in Australia. During this time, she became a certified Reiki practitioner, and over the past 12 years, she has delved into the realms of somatic experiencing, gaining insights into psychosomatic manifestations within the body. Sharnie has also worked as a dating and relationship coach across Australia, Europe, UK, and the USA, helping women date and manage relationship issues. Sharnie completed study in early 2024 with world-renowned physician Dr. Gabor Mate in Compassionate Inquiry, a somatic experience technique to help people connect to their true selves. She has also undertaken training in internal family systems therapy, EMDR therapy, neurofeedback therapy, and spinal energetics. Sharnie believes that all of the experience in different facets of mental health have given her a greater understanding of relationships and helped her to become a more empathetic and compassionate psychosomatic therapist who recognizes people where they are on their journey of understanding their own emotions and trauma. Sharnie's diverse experiences across different facets of mental health give her deep insight into relationships and trauma, having shaped her into an empathetic and compassionate therapist. Sharnie meets individuals wherever they are on their journey of understanding through emotions and navigating trauma. And there's so much more to unpack there, but I want you to talk. So a big welcome to the show, Sharnie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I look forward to it.
That is quite a journey that you've been on. So what kind of pulled you at first to the somatic practices and how you ended up in that space where you get trained by the world-renowned Gabor Mate?
Yeah, it's a bit of a journey. I'm probably going to have to go way, way back. So I won't go too far into it, but obviously if you want to unpack it with me, that's completely fine as well. But I grew up in a really dysfunctional home. I had a lot of childhood trauma. If anyone is familiar with the ACEs, which are the adverse childhood events, there's 10. I had 9 out of the 10 ACEs, so I had a lot. And so obviously through that, home was so dysfunctional that I ended up in a relationship at around 16, 17. I got married at 20. I look back now and I kind of think like I was really just trying to, one, have someone to love me and to have some stability in my life as well. So I got married at 20, I divorced at 24. And then when I left my ex-husband, I kind of went into drugs and, sort of just partying and having a really great time and probably trying to figure myself out. But found dating and relationships really difficult. And when I was 27, I attempted to take my own life. And so after that, I ended up, seeing psychologists and counselors and, got put on antidepressants but nothing worked. Nothing really worked for me at all. But I found I'd go and sit on therapists' couches and they'd listen to my story, but no one was really giving me anything back. And I wasn't really getting any answers as to why I was the way I was and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of gave up on that and I went into the spiritual realm. And I say to people, I spiritually bypassed my pain. I use spirituality to paper over my problems and to, I suppose, give me a sense of stability and something to hold on to. So it was definitely beneficial, but I still wasn't gaining what I wanted in life. I didn't feel like I was moving forward. I still felt really stuck. And I now understand as a somatic therapist that when we feel stuck, it's because we actually have core beliefs that are keeping us stuck. So it's our trauma. And then so I was in the spiritual realm for a really long time. And then my father died by suicide at 16, and I had been estranged from my family for many years. And so I kind of came back into the family when that happened. And not long after my dad passed away, I became a carer for my mother, who got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And my most painful aspect was my relationship with my mother. And I desperately wanted her to love me. I desperately wanted her to be able to connect with me, but she just wasn't capable of doing that. And when she died, there was a sense of relief, but there was also this sense of grief, and I didn't know what to do with that. And I went to a Kundalini yoga class, and it was Healing the Heart was the name of the class of the day. And I went and I was doing the Kundalini movements, and I just had all this rage come up inside of me. And I'd never been to this Kundalini class before. And at the end of the class, I just felt like it was divine intervention. But she said to me, "You know, I'm a therapist too." I thought that's a sign. And so I went home and thought about it. I was very skeptical of psychologists and counselors because I haven't had good interactions with them in the past. But I thought about it and I went, look, I'll give it one go. I went very skeptically. I was like, this is going to be a load of crap. I'm not going to get anything out of it. And I sat in front of her, and it was somatic work. And so she took me into my body, and all this grief and rage was there. And I cried for the whole 60 minutes of the session. And at the end of it, she said to me, well, you're not grieving your mother. You're grieving the love that you never got from her. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I was like, whoa, yeah, you're right. Like it's the love that I never got from my mother. And so from there, I just worked with her week after week. I went back every week. I looked forward to the sessions because I knew something was shifting, even though I felt like I was going insane. I thought this woman probably thinks I'm insane because I would just cry and cry and cry. But, I also was feeling so much lighter. And in that, I started to find my true, authentic self. And so I worked with her for a couple of years. And then I ended up in a relationship, as you do. And that relationship didn't work out. And I went, I've still got the same problems. Even though I've been working on myself, I still have the same problems in relationships. So from there, I made the decision to go to Peru and do ayahuasca, and had some really profound insights there. And then from there, I decided to go to Costa Rica and do Iboga, and I had lots of profound healings there. And in amongst that, I started going back to university. And when I graduated, I applied to study with Dr. Gabor Mate and started to do that. So that was a 12-month course. And from there, I went off and did EMDR and all those other things, and back at university now to continue on. But that's how I kind of ended up working with Gabor.
Yeah, which is such a beautiful journey. And thank you for sharing that, Sharnie, because it just shows the depth of how much trauma you have been through and how strong you are as well to actually now be here, that you can still talk about it, but also that it was that curiosity, right? Like, why is this happening? Why, how can, and then the how, and how can I change it? And that seems to be like that seems to be the driver in your journey, right? Like, it's like, if you had stopped, you maybe wouldn't have met, and trained with Gabor Mate, or you wouldn't have, gone down and done MDR. And it's always that. For me, I just kept hearing when you were talking like that self-mastery, right? And then now you get to share that and all your journey and all the wisdom you've learned with other people.
Yeah, I think it was always there was always this inner drive within me, and this curiosity. I think like there was always this drive that I don't want to stay stuck. Like I want certain things in my life. I want my life to look a certain way. I don't want to stay in dysfunctional family patterns. I don't want to, I want more for myself. I want a better life for myself. And I always say to my clients, because a lot of people like, I want a relationship, I want to be loved, right? And I get that. I totally get that. And I always say to my clients, when I started out, I wanted to be loved too. But what happened is I found something way more than that. I found myself. I found myself in amongst it all. And that is more beautiful and divine than anything else, is just finding yourself. And when you find yourself and you love yourself, then the right person can come in. the person who can love your authentic self. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, as my coach says, you only attract, if you don't love yourself, you can't attract love. I can't remember exactly what he says, but the love needs
Yes.
to come from you first. You
Yes.
can't
Absolutely.
attract a relationship when you hate yourself. You need to
Yeah.
love yourself and come back to yourself first.
Absolutely. But I think the thing is as well is most people think they do love themselves. But actually, yes, your adult self might love yourself, but that little child inside who was never loved does not love themselves, because when a child is not loved in the way that they need, they make it mean something about them. I'm not good enough. I'm defective. Something's wrong with me. I'm stupid. I'm unlovable. I'm this, I'm that. And it's those core beliefs that keep us stuck. You as an
Yeah.
adult know, yes, I love myself, but there's something else driving you, and it's the wounded inner child inside. And that's why I always work with the inner child when I'm working with people, and I work with the core beliefs, because when you feel stuck, it's because there's a core belief spinning in your mind, and we have to break that.
Yeah. And you have to get yourself out of that, because that keeps you in that perpetual story loop, and it keeps you from
Absolutely.
being able
Yeah.
to step out. And for anyone listening, you can't see it yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you're broken or anything. It's just, my coach to me the other week said, a mirror can't see herself. You cannot see yourself. Sometimes that's why it's good to have support and be able to reach out so someone can go,
Absolutely.
hey, you're doing this. This is what's happening.
Absolutely. I call belief systems doom loop vortexes, because it's like you're just kind of like in a whirlpool, right? And you can't get out of it. And yeah, they're completely unconscious to most of us. I had some core beliefs that were very conscious to me at the time, but there were a lot that were completely unconscious as well. And yeah, you do really need someone to take you into the somatic experience and feeling into it and feeling where it is. And as you're in your body and actually in the sensations and feeling, it's actually quite easy to connect into the core beliefs as well. And also finding a therapist who actually works with core beliefs, because core beliefs are not something that you get taught about at university. They're not things that you actually, like, therapists actually learn about. You learn about them in EMDR training. I learned about them also with Gabor as well. They were something that we're focused on there. And also internal family systems do focus on core beliefs to some extent as well. But for me, as my practice has developed, I focus more and more on core beliefs, because those core beliefs actually, I'll explain it from a neurological perspective for people who, it might be a little bit too much, I'm not sure, but basically how I explain core beliefs is when we're traumatized, when something happens to us and we're traumatized, as a small child, we just don't have the cognitive awareness to go, well, mum's really stressed, dad's working 2 jobs, like mum's really depressed, like we just can't see that. Like, so if we go to mum for affection or dad for affection, um, and we they're like, oh, get away, I don't really have time for you right now, like, it's like, there must be something wrong with me, right? Like, and so that's a trauma. So then what happens is, for whatever reason, we don't know why, the brain can't process it. So what happens is, from a neurological perspective, the neurons just keep spiraling, they keep circling in the brain, and they don't fire off. And so what happens is, that's a stuck feeling. When you feel stuck, it's a neuron it's a trauma, a belief system that just keeps spiraling. So when we're healing, we're breaking those and we're allowing the neuron to fire off. And I love when I'm working with people in EMDR, because they'll start off like, I'm not good enough. But as they go along, you can see their cognitive awareness changed. I was just a small child. Actually, I wasn't protected. Actually, I should have been given love in this time, instead of being ignored. And so that's the neuron starting to create a new neurological pathway.
Two things came up for me when you were explaining that. So the first thing was that scene, if anyone's watched Inside Out, the first one, when Riley runs away because all her core beliefs have crumbled. And exactly what you said, she couldn't understand everything that was happening to her on that bigger level. So then she went into that trauma and everything kind of fell apart, and it was actually really good how they kind of just like explained that, yeah. So they had, these core beliefs, which were like things that helped make her who she was. And then because, mum and they moved and then she had to make new friends and like all these things were happening, those core beliefs were just getting stuck and crumbling because they weren't able to have the energy to keep going. going to them to allow that flow to keep happening in the body.
Yeah, exactly. And I always say to clients, they will keep us stuck until we work with them and heal them. But the other thing is people have to want to face into it too, right? Like I do get a lot of clients who come to me, and because they've gone and seen talk therapists before, they've seen the talk therapy is what we call CBT in psychology and counseling land. But CBT is really just having you listen, like having the therapist listen, and then sort of giving them strategies. Well, maybe you could have a warm bath, or maybe you can go for a walk, or there's nothing really going deeper into what's causing the pain and suffering, right? But when people come to me and I'm taking them into the body, it can be really overwhelming. And it's always a sign to me, right? No one helped this person learn how to regulate emotions. But for a lot of people, it can be quite overwhelming. And a lot of people will say, look, I know you're hitting the nail on the head, but I'm just not ready right now. And that's completely fine. But when you're going to a somatic therapist, and it is going to be very different, it's going to be much more intense, but we really do have to feel it to heal it. Like that is my mantra as well. We have to feel it to heal it. We have to come into the body. And the more we do that, we're actually training our brain. I can have this emotion and nothing bad's going to happen to me. But it's just that when you had those emotions as a child, there was no one there to co-regulate with you.
Exactly. The other thing I wanted to ask as well before I forget is, can you explain what EMDR is to people? I know what it is, but not everyone listening will know what it is.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, all these like lingos and stuff. So EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So basically what it is people who come to me, I don't jump straight into EMDR because it pushes people out of their window of tolerance, which the window of tolerance is like, whoa, this is a lot. I can't deal with it right now. Like there's a lot of feelings coming up. But basically when we do the bilateral stimulation, the eye movements, for whatever reason, we don't really know how it works. It takes people into their body. And so what happens is we'll identify the belief system. So I'm not good enough. And then we'll identify the sensations in the body. Like maybe it's in my chest here, maybe it's in my tummy, maybe it's in my hands. And then what's the emotion behind it? So sadness, fear, anger, shame. So we hold the belief, the sensations, the emotions, and then we hold the memory. So whatever that memory is. So we're holding all four things, and we're doing the eye movements on that. And as we go along, it's gonna increase. So it's like almost like a peak. So it will peak at the top, and then it will come down, and that's when you will start to reprogram or recalibrate what you think about or feel about that situation. So it starts to change your perception of it, and then it takes the emotion out of it for you, and then it makes it easier to work.
And it almost taps into that neuroplasticity of the brain, right? So it's almost like freeing up those pathways so that it can allow the new patterns to come in and let go of the old ones, like you were saying before, the neurons getting stuck.
Absolutely. And some beliefs in that are really sticky. Like I've had some sticky ones where it's taken quite a few sessions to actually resolve it. And then other ones, you might just have to do it once and it's a one and done thing. I find for people who, which is very rare, but there are some people who have never had complex trauma or childhood trauma, but they've had one traumatic incident, like a car accident or, just something really traumatic that might have happened, a sexual assault or something like that. And it's just usually a one and done thing for them because they haven't got any complex trauma. But for a lot of us, I'd say 90
the
to
rest
90%,
of us.
yeah, the most of us, we've had childhood trauma, and that's why we do get PTSD. I mean, the data is very clear on that. We don't get PTSD unless we've had childhood trauma. Yeah, haven't had that co-regulation.
Yeah, definitely. And it's such a big thing people don't realize. And even if people say, like, if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, but I can't remember my childhood, that is a sign of trauma in itself, because it means that your brain is actually subconsciously blocking you from remembering it because something did happen and it couldn't cope with it. So that can be a flag in itself. Yeah.
And another red flag is when someone says I had an amazing childhood. I had the most amazing childhood. Gabriel says he calls it the Happy Childhood Challenge because and a lot of people say this to me. They'll come in and go, oh, I never had childhood trauma. And I go, okay, well, did anyone drink in your family? Oh, yeah, mum drank all the time. She's a bit of an alcoholic. Okay, was there any domestic violence? Oh, yeah, there, every now and then dad would hit mum, but it was only every now and then, but the thing is it was our normal. right? It was our baseline,
Mm.
right? I never thought I had childhood trauma either until later on in my life. I actually realized how bad it was. But yeah, but most of us will think we didn't have trauma, but as we unpack it, but from a lot of people, it's like what we call small t trauma, like it's just relational trauma, like nothing
Yeah.
catastrophic or bad happened, but we just didn't get our emotional needs met,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And for a little child, that is still, it feels like a big trauma. Like you said, I know it's a little
Absolutely,
T,
yeah.
but at the same time, if your little 3-year-old self really wanted that sandwich and you didn't get it for some unknown reason and you don't understand why, then you think if you every time you ask for something, you're not going to get it unless you throw a tantrum. Well, that's going to set you up for a certain behavior and core belief, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Like just not being held. Like Gabrielle wrote a book called "Hold On to Your Kids," and it's really just about holding your children through their emotions. You know, I used to
Yeah.
work on a crisis line, and for a lot of people, they just didn't know how to sit with their difficult emotions. They just didn't know how to sit in sadness or anger or shame or all these things, right? And so they just couldn't be with it, and that's why a lot of people turn to addictions, because that's the only way that they know how to self-regulate. Addiction is just an
Numbing.
attempt to self-regulate and feel better, and so whether that's a behavioral addiction or a physical addiction, but straight away it tells me no one taught you how to be with yourself, right? How to be, when we're upset and there's no one there to hold us through our tears, we start to learn that being sad is really bad. It's really not good to feel sad, and so we will try and escape sadness any way we can. So yeah, so it's just, yeah, we didn't get the co-regulation. I know I never got the co-regulation. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's such an important thing to remember for any parents who are listening too. Like
Mm.
sometimes we can't stop our kids feeling the emotions and we shouldn't, like there's, boys don't cry, like things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to
Yes.
actually let
Yes.
those go because you're actually doing more harm than good. And just let them cry, let them be,
Yeah.
let them express
Yeah.
themselves. And when you're going through an emotional event too, explain to them what's going on, because otherwise,
Yes.
because kids are little emotional radars, they'll take on what you're
Mm.
feeling because they don't understand. They think it's about them rather than,
Yes.
work's not going well or you're stressed because someone in the family's unwell or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. And just putting words to it is enough to help their little brain understand it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a really good point that you brought up. Yeah, I see that a lot when I do inner child work, was
Yeah.
people would say, I just needed someone to explain what was going on, especially when there's a death in the family. You see that a lot,
Yeah.
like if they lose a grandparent, something like that, and everyone just goes into their own grief and no one's there to hold them through and help them make sense of it. And
Yeah.
the thing is, as well, is children, they are so attuned to you,
Yes.
and so they know what's going on, even if you're not explaining it. Like, I know my mum used to think, well, you were too young to understand what was going on. It's like, no, I knew what was going on. I knew exactly
Yes.
what was going on. But she's like, no, you're too young to remember that. Like, you must have dreamt it or something. But we're so attuned as children to our parents, and we know exactly how they're feeling and what's going on. And the thing is kids will co-regulate with you. So if you're always anxious or you're always upset, they're dialing into that. They're feeling that very intensely. And that's what causes dysregulation for the child. And then they start to numb out or try and numb out in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Very well said, because it is. They
Mm.
end up numbing it out because that's what we do. Because,
Yeah.
we've been so conditioned not to feel and to shove it all down deep inside.
Yeah.
But then that's when it ends up being dis-ease in your body. And when it ends up being,
Yeah.
it's not going to work for you. So it's just like you said at the very start, you got to feel it to heal it, because the more you not choose not to feel it, the bigger the body's going to start responding and like upping the volume on that pain or that whatever's happening.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well said. I think, yeah, definitely, like, yeah, sharp as chronic pain. But even like for a lot of kids, they'll start cutting, self-harming, they'll burn their skin,
Yeah.
things like that, all those sorts of things, even like masturbation, pornography. And that's really big with young boys. I see that quite a bit. But there's like lots of ways that we're going to try and escape pain and feel better. And, our brain's wired to try and feel good, not feel bad. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we do have to learn to feel into that so that we can start to be okay with ourselves.
Exactly. And, from having a session with you, I can actually talk about this with you. So,
Yes.
so I had this question too when I first connected with you, and I asked you, what is spinal energetics? So, did you want to explain a little bit to people what that is? I know you encompass everything that you do, but I'd never heard of that term before until I met you.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, I'll tell you how I found spinal energetics. So I had a very big psychedelic healing experience, and in that journey, I had a ego death. And what I learned in that is, even with all the work that I had done on myself, my heart was still closed off. No one could get in, and I did not think that at all. But I realized how true that was, and that I just didn't trust people. And so I said to my really good girlfriend, who will be listening to this, so hi Kyra. She said, well, how about you try spinal energetics? I just found this and it's been so great. And I'm like, yeah, well, I need something to open my heart up. Like, I'll give anything a go, because like I've been a Reiki practitioner for many years, and like I like Reiki and I think it's great, but this is just a whole other level.
Yeah.
And so I started to have spinal energetic sessions, and in that, um, I really let go of a lot of deep stuff that I was still holding on to. And I started to realize some of this stuff wasn't even mine, it was ancestral. And I had really big movements and really big emotional releases in spinal energetics. Like I sometimes, and I would shake, like I physically shake, and I would get cold, which is like a dorsal vagal response, which is like pre-verbal trauma. And I know I had pre-verbal trauma as well. And so I just started going once a month. I would just have a session, and if I felt like I need another more than that, I would. But I just mainly stuck to once a month, and I still get them once a month with my practitioner. And in that process, I really became much more open. My heart became much more open, and I let go of a lot of really, really deep stuff in those sessions. And so as I've gone along, they've become less emotional, and I'm starting to notice now that my movement isn't as big. It's starting to get a bit smaller, which is great. So usually we come into spinal energetics level 1, a lot of people don't have a lot of movement, but as they go along, their movements start to get bigger, and as they move their body starts to release the emotion, and they have the big emotional releases and the big movements. And then that's level 2, and then we go into level 3, which is going back to being still and not a lot of emotion or a lot of movement, and that's because we've let a lot of the trauma go. So spinal energetics is it's a trauma releasing tool, but it's also just a general wellness tool. But what it is it's a mixture of so the person who invented it was a chiropractor, and so she used a technique called spinal flow, but she incorporated the spinal flow element as well as the energy healing elements as well. So we work a lot with the chakra systems, and we work with the pelvis, the spine, and the minor spine in the neck. And along those areas of the body, there's access points. I will access it, and we access it with sound. So it would be like a...
It is exactly like that. Anyone listening is exactly what it's like.
Yeah. And every practitioner is going to have a different sound because it's your sound. But what happens is sound is energy as well. And when I do the sound, I'm doing an intention. I'm intentionally unlocking that. I'm intentionally pulling through the layers of the body. I'm releasing those layers. I'm opening your chakra. I'm fueling the energy through the body, like with a... Or it's like sometimes it's like a... If I like a... feel this anger, or something sticky that's stuck, and if
I had
I'm
a
like...
lot of that.
Yeah, if I have like a wave, like it's more sadness, So I'm really in tune with you as much as I possibly can be. But yeah, everything is an intention. And so the sound and the intention will help that person to unwind. So yeah, but yeah, how was your session? Because we haven't really spoken since.
No, we haven't. We've just been like passing ships in the night, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah.
So the biggest thing that stood out for me when Sharnie was working on me was I had this intense heat and start in my hip. And I remember saying that to you. I'm like, my hip is so at the back. And I was like, it was so hot. And you're like, yeah, this is like all this self-worth stuff. And I'm like, because I spent so long last year working on all that stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm done with it. But you're not, because it's like layers, right? And it was a lot of that release and a lot of shifting and a lot of it felt lighter afterwards. It's almost like it just had to. And I remember you saying like, you need to move your hips. And I was like, okay. And then
Yeah.
it was almost like you had to give me that permission to do that. And then it was
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's just going to go now. Like, I'm just going to move and I'm just going to let it all out. And what was the other thing I was going to share with that? Yeah. But when you started doing the noises, I knew they were coming, but it was just like, what's happening? And you were the first person to explain to me, because I get really cold, like all the time, especially after healing
Yeah.
sessions. And when you explained it to me exactly like you did before, that it's to do with pre-verbal things, and then I was like, well, yeah, I had a birth trauma. And then you're like, yep, makes sense. Like it
Yes.
all
Yeah.
just fits in. And your body holds everything. It's like, like in Frozen, there's always that line that Olaf said, like, water has memory, because our body's made up of water. So our body carries memories just as much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also the heat can also be like a sign that you've been in a bit of fight and flight trauma response as well. Like, so that more hypervigilant sort of state as well. I mean, I get the heat sometimes too, particularly like sometimes when my practitioners working in my heart area, because I know I hold grief in between my shoulder blades in the heart, right? Like most of us do, but it will start to like intensify, and I'll say to, oh, my heart, like my shoulder blades, like they're really sore. And so yeah, but as I move my arms, like I know if I move my arms, the tears will come, and then the tears come. But yeah, but the other thing is with spinal energetics, like a lot of people see the videos online, and if anyone wants to check it out, go to the Spinal Energetics Instagram page. You can have a look at what spinal energetics is all about. But those big movements, very few people have those big movements to start with. Like it's a gradual increase. And so you really have to stick with it. And a lot of people want the movement, but a lot of us are also disconnected from our body, right? And and that's a trauma response. And so a lot of people are kind of a bit like a rock, and that's fine. And it's just, but over time, the connection will start to happen. And the other thing is, I think if people are closed off and go, well, this is woo woo, this is a load of crap, you're probably going to not experience anything happening for quite a while. I have a client like that who, when we started, because he's very data driven and very analytical to start with, he was like, I don't believe in this. So, and I knew that I could feel that from our first session. But then over time, he's actually now starting to feel stuff. Like he still doesn't really move, but his experiences very internal. He's like, I went off somewhere and I don't know where I went, but I went somewhere. Or he's like, oh, in my hip, or I was feeling a bit here. So people will start to feel over time, but you have to be, one, open to it, but two, you're probably not going to move straight away. The clients that I have who have been my long-term counseling clients who have come to spinal energetics have moved straight away because they're connected to their body, because we've been doing all that body work together.
Yeah. But I love that client story, because clearly somewhere deep down he believed it would work, because he booked in with you in the first place and kept coming back, right? So clearly there was something happening at a deeper level, even though he's there going, I don't believe in this, but he's still showing up and he's still coming back, right?
He's been a long-term counselling client of mine. So when I did spinal, and I do it for all new clients as well. So every new client who books in and does a somatic session with me, I give them a free 20-minute spinal session at the end, just so they can see what it's about, because a lot of people haven't heard about it. They don't know what it's like. And so I did that for him, and he was closed off to it, but he kind of stuck with it, and he enjoys it now. Yeah. Where I got to him was, he's very data driven, very science driven. I said, well, do you believe in the quantum field and quantum physics? And he's like, yes. And well, then this is what this is. I'm working with the quantum field. I'm working in that quantum physics space.
I know. It's nice when you can find the hook, and normally, spirit or the divine will go, hey, just mention this, in your intuition, and you're like, yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you for the bone.
People think like I can't do it online, but the thing is,
No, you
is
can.
like,
I did it online. You definitely can.
Yes. Yeah. And most of my clients are like they're located all over America and the UK, and they're not here in Australia, most of them. So for me, I mainly work online. But the thing is, and I do online sessions with my therapist, and I've done in-person ones as well. But actually, my most transformative ones have been in my own home, and I think it's the safety of
Yeah.
being in my own, the comfort of being in my own home that has, and yeah, like just maybe not being touched as much. I don't know, but I can only put it down to that. But for some reason, online just works better for me as a spinal practitioner, and I don't know, I see the most beautiful transformations online.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like energy, it's amazing because they've even done studies where they've taken astronauts' blood into space and they've done something to the astronaut back here, like on planet
Mm-hmm.
Earth, right? And then the blood will react the same way. So they showed the astronaut something scary and the blood actually reacted the same way in space because
Okay.
everything's connected by energy. So there's really cool studies that are coming out to prove this, to back us up, right? That we're not just woo and
Yeah.
crazy, which is really,
Yeah.
really nice. So it's a fun
Yeah.
time to be alive and working in the
Yeah.
energetic field because so much
Well,
stuff's coming to come out.
I also saw something that I think it was either this morning or yes, last night. I can't remember now. But anyway, it was the scientists noticed that when eclipses happened, that the trees actually spoke to each other and sent each other electromagnetic pulses. And when eclipses happen, only on eclipses. So it's like, yeah, I believe in astrology. I use astrology even in my own counseling practice for people who are open to it as well. But it's like, yeah, we all know that we're affected when there's a full moon. I used to work in ED, and whenever it was a new moon or a full moon, we just brace ourselves for an influx of patients through the door, right? And because the moon controls the water and it controls the flow, and so yeah, people can have big reactions to the moons.
Brings out the crazy. Yeah.
Yes.
And the parasites and everything else. Yeah, it's really, the more you look into it, the more it's like, oh, that actually makes sense,
Yeah.
And I know we could talk all day, Sharnie, but we need to start to finish up our time together. So if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
I would bring humanity to consciousness. Yeah. Because when we become conscious to ourselves, only then can we really act with a loving, true heart and be in our authenticity. And if we want to heal our trauma, we have to come to consciousness. And that's why I call my business Conscious Flow Counseling. I wanted conscious in there. I'm a big Jungian person, so Carl Jung. But consciousness. We have to. If we were all consciousness, we would not have war. We would not have poverty. We would not have abuse. We would not have human trafficking. If we all became conscious and healed our trauma, all the issues in the world would just abate. And
yeah. And where it's such a beautiful, I just to say that's like a really beautiful concept, right? Like, and it's here, like it's here. We just have to access it, really.
Absolutely.
And if people want to find you, Sharnie, where can they come and find you and hang out with you?
Yeah, sure. So I have a website, www.consciousflowcounseling.com. I'm also on Instagram at conscious_flow_counseling. I'm on YouTube at Conscious Flow Counseling. I think that's it.
Beautiful. And I'll make sure to put all those details in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for being here, Sharnie. And thank you for sharing your journey and everything. And yeah, I know we'll keep talking after this, but we have to wrap up for now.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure anytime.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.